Hi, good morning class. Today we will proceed with form processing using PHP arrays and superglobals. So in this lecture, you will learn how to use the post and get method to pass the user input from the HTML form to the backend. And this will be further processed by the by our PHP codes. So of course, the concept of PHP superglobals arrays is quite important here. So before we go into details, first we will go through some concepts on arrays first. We'll go through some concepts on arrays first to refresh your memory, because the concept of array is quite important when we do the form processing in PHP. So when we are passing the values from the front end to the back end, actually all the data are stored as a set of array. Key pairs values. So later we will see the examples. So after we look at the arrays, we will look at we also will look at how to apply the get method, post method. These two are superglobal arrays. These two methods will help us to send the data from the front end, from our HTML form to the back end, the PHP script to do the further processing. So we also will look at some other arrays like the server array, files array, and also we'll look at some of the PHP functions that can allow us to read or write files. So first of all, this is a general concept of arrays that you're already familiar. So when we define an array in PHP, so as we have learned before, in PHP, when we want to define an array, one way is we can use the syntax array to specify that the variable that we define is an array that we will store a set of items. So this is a typical syntax for us to define an array. So if we see this array, we will know that we have a set of arrays store the number the day, the five days: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So this is to store the values. And we can also define an array. This is also another syntax for you to define array. You can also use a square bracket to define it and include the values that you want to store in this array. And one of the very important concept in array is the values that we want to store will always have one key for us to refer. So for example, if now we have a set of arrays and we have these 5 values, so we will have keys to represent each. This is a unique key to represent each of these. So the keys, when we want to retrieve a value here, let's say if we want to retrieve Monday, MON, these values, if we call this array and pass in the square bracket, and we pass in the index 0, we will get we will receive the value MON. If we pass in days in the square bracket 1, then we will use that we will get the value Tuesday. So the concept of key and values are very important in arrays. So this is to show you that all the arrays in PHP, we can generally refer them as associative arrays. So if you see in this example, we have include the key and value here. So later in the later example, you also will see that we can also define our own key for each value. So by default, for PHP array, we will start from the index 0. Then for the next item will be +1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is by default. So you can see that this is also another way to represent array with the key, and we use the arrowhead to point to the value, then followed by comma, key, value, key, value. So this is to show that we are calling it as associative arrays, because they will show us the key and value, the key associated to the particular value. So this is you can use integer and string keys, not necessary in order. So this is another example. As I have mentioned earlier, by default, if you didn't define your own key, PHP, they will set 0 as a first key. But you can also indicate your own key. So in this example, if we see this array, we will know that the first one will always be the key. So same like here, the first one always is the key. This is the syntax. So if we look at this array, in this example, we define our own key using a strings mon as a key, and the value is 40. And the second one is the second key. This is the second key TUE with the value 47. The third key WED point to the 52. So this is the set of keys that self-defined by the programmer using the string, and the second one represent the values. So if when we want to call, let's say when we call this, it will show us the outputs, the numbers or the values for Tuesday. So same like the previous one, when we pass in the key, different from the previous one. This one is we are using the default key. This one we use the self-defined key TUE, and we'll get output 47. If we pass in this key THU, this string key, we'll get the output 40. So this is just to prove just to show the differences of ourselves. We can also define our own key. So this is another example. I think in Java also you have learned this. We can have multi-dimensional arrays. You can have 2D arrays, 3D arrays. So for this example, within this array, we also have another 4 arrays. So we have in this example, we can see that they actually also they allow us to store arrays within the multi-dimensional arrays. So we can see in this example, we actually have 4 different arrays. This is array 0 with the index 0, array with the index 1, array with the index 2, and arrays with the index 3. Actually, if we observe this, it actually represents 4 weeks in a month. Okay, so and this will remember this, it will always be the key, and this will be the value. So we can see that if, let's say, this is a multi-dimensional arrays, and you want to you want to call the month with the first one, this is the first one, the first row represent the week. Okay, 0 index, and we want to refer to the second one is number 3, index 3. So this will give us Thursday. And the other one, if we pass in month, and the first one, the first index is 3. So we will refer to the 4th row, the first 4th week arrays. And we want to look at the index 2 in this array number 3. So this will give us the output, the value, WED, Wednesday. So this is just an example to show you that PHP also can allow us to define multi-dimensional arrays. So this is one example that we can apply the multi-dimensional arrays in shopping cart. So let's say if you have a shopping cart, and in this shopping cart you have multiple items. So in this example shows that there are 4 items, each with their specific each item. This is a shopping cart which consists of 4 items, and for the item array, for each item array, we have ID, have title, and quantity. So the benefit of why we define our own key. Sometimes when we define our own key, the benefit is we will be able to recognize that we have it is easy for the programmer to understand what informations or what values you are storing. So if you see that by self, but if we define our own keys, we will know that this value refer to the item ID, and this value represent the title, and this one quantity represents the this quantity represent the numbers of the quantity of the items that will added to the shopping cart. Okay, so in this particular example, so if now we are calling this array the cart array, and we are referring to index 2. Index 2, that means that the third item in this cart, the third items in this shopping cart we are referring to. and we want to access the title for this, the third item. So this is, we will get the value Starry Night. So this is just an example using the painting, using the pen. If let's say people are buying paintings, this they are selling all the different titles for the paintings, and what they have, each of them have their unique ID. So when we have array, we knew that we will have a set of items inside the array. We have a set of elements in the array. So we commonly to retrieve the items or the elements in the array, we will use the iterative functions like while loop, for loop, for each loop to retrieve the elements in the array. So in this example, we have applied while loop, and we assume that we have an array days, and we want to when we define I equals to 0, when the count, we also use PHP default method count to count the numbers of how many elements in this array. So this is a count is a PHP default function. So we know how many the total number. Let's say if we have five elements here, so I will less than 5 after we count it. So we will print each of the values we will pass in the elements. So we start from index 0 until 4, 0 to 4, and we will print each of the days. This is using the print out the same thing, but using the for loop. So same thing, we also apply the count method to count the total number of elements in this days array. This is using the for each. So when we apply for each, like what we have learned before, for each will allow us to iterate every element one by one. Each elements in this array, when you apply for each, we will iterate and go through each of the value in this array. So if you apply for each, and we have this forecast array, and each of the elements, we set it as another variable called value, and when we look through when we iterate through each value in the forecast, we store here and we print it out. So it will give us the same result like what we have got for while loop and for loop. So this is another one. If let's say we iterating through the values and the keys. So we have, when we iterate it, because we want to retrieve the key and also values here. So we iterate through the values and the keys. So when we echo, we actually echo in the format. If you see here, actually we have a string, and we concatenate with the key, the value. Later you will see that it will actually appear in the day with a square bracket, passing the key and value for each of the elements. So for arrays, we have, and we can add and edit the elements. So you can we can add an element can be added to an array. Like let's say now you want to specify you want to store a string in this array under the index 5. Namely, it's 6 items in this array. So we pass in here. Another one, an alternative to specify the index, a new element can be added to an array. If you indicate this, if let's say this is another alternative to specifying the index, a new element can be added to the end if you put empty square brackets. If let's say you don't know whether how many elements already in the in this, and sometimes because the program will keep on looking at it, so you don't want to do any count or anything. So in order to do that, you can use the empty square brackets after the array name, so they will automatically add to the end. The last item will be added to the last element. So this is another way of doing this. If you want to, we can also use unset to delete. So for arrays, they have some of the method like sort to apply to PHP arrays. If you apply this, you will do the sorting based on the indexing. If you we can also do ascending sorting, assort. Okay, so this is a difference. Just to if you want to keep the association, you can the resulting array in this case will keep association. So if we want to use, if we use assort, that means that we want to show the associations. So there are different other array operations that you can use, like the array keys, values, random, reverse, walk. So you can look at some the PHP official website for the details and also examples for these operations. So now I will go to the source code part to show you the example. So this is the example that you already see. We have defined a month array. So we have a variable and we store a multi-dimensional arrays here. So now if let's say we call this the month 03, we assume that we are referring to the first row. And the fourth elements 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So we will expect this will be the output. Another one, this is another example. So we have a card array. We have defined a card array, and these are the three items added to the card. So this is also another example of the multi-dimensional arrays. And now if we want to access so later we will know that this is represent the third one, and we want to access the title. So we will know that later we will see the output Starry Nights here. So remember, for those that if you haven't installed the XAMPP, remember to install the XAMPP. So before you compile your PHP code, start your Apache first. For in this example, in this case, I already start the Apache. And for the code that you want to run, remember to store them in C drive. In C drive, and also remember to install them in C drive. Okay, and in XAMPP for Windows user, go to C drive under XAMPP htdocs, and you can store your codes here to compile. So for me, I want to go to the lecture 8. Lecture double check. 08. These are all the codes that I have. So this is when I run, you will see the output. First one is the output for the month. The second one is the Starry Night. The second one is from the second multi-dimensional array from the shopping cart. So this is the iterating arrays that we have seen. We define a days array and we pass in three elements into this array with the key 0, 1, 2. These are the value associated to each key. So when we call while loop, later you will see that we will be able to print out these three values with the break line, with the line break. So this you will also see the same thing, but using the do while loop. This is using the for loop. So you will get the same thing, but just writing using the while loop, do while loop, and for loop. So you can see actually they will give you a similar result, except that they are just using the different iterative function. Okay, so we have seen that there are three sets of the output: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. One for while loop, do while loop, and for loop. So this is the for each. Okay. So for this for each, this is the array that we have seen in the lecture notes. We use the for each to look through the value. And the second one later you will notice that we in this example you will see that I actually we will look at the day with the key showing the key like day later you will see is Monday day if the day equals to Monday, the values will be 40. So this is something that you will see. So not only printed the value but also the key. Okay, so this is the first one that we have seen. We only print out the value. We iterate and we store the value only. The second one, we also want the key and also value. Okay. So you can see in the format, I have a string. Okay, so in this example, I have the string, then concatenate with the key. That's why you will see day, month. So if you change it, let's say if you want it to look different, you can also then this will appear in front of it. And so this is just flexible. As this one just to show that we will print the key and also value. So how you want to print it is up to you how you want to print it. Okay, so this is the example we use unset to delete a value. So now we have an array Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I want to remove. We will remove the third item at index 2. So we knew this will be removed, and this one, the fourth one, also will be removed. So when I print this array, we will only see the index 0, index 1, index 4, only the three elements left. So the elements, the third element and fourth element will be removed using the unset. So this is another one just to show example when we apply the array values and we use print out to print the array. So let's see the output. Okay, so the first one, because after we remove, we notice that after we unset it, actually we only left items with index 0, 1, and 4. So when we use array values, it will help us to rearrange the index. You can see we will get output 0, 1, 2, and we print it again. Okay, so this is another example for the key set values. Okay, so in this example, we have a set of array called odd keys with we have defined key 1 for hello, key 3 for whoa, key 5 for exclamation mark. So this one, if it's set actually is to check whether this is exist or not. So when you check whether we have any elements with the key 0, so the code below will never be reached because we don't have this key. So because we only have 3 items with key 1, key 3, and key 5. So if you check, it set actually is a method later when you run some of the error handling or this, sometimes some of the method can be used. Okay, so this is to determine if a variable is declared and is different than null. So if you check here later when we are calling this, when we check this, that means that because the key 0 is not set, 1 will have 1. Okay, that means that we have something an elements with a key 1, but we don't have any elements with key 0. Okay, so this will be this is not run because we don't have anything with key 0. Okay, so this is just to shows you that this is we have this is when we the importance of the key and pair. So later, because when we pass the elements from the front end from our HTML form, actually we also have to define the name for in the form. This will be recognized at the PHP side because this is the name that we will use as a key to store is the key that associate to the values that the user has entered. So later, I will show you emphasize to you again which is the key that you need to emphasize. Okay, so now we will we'll continue. For in PHP, one of the important concept is in PHP they have what they call it predefined associative arrays. The name is super global variables. So this allows the programmer to access the HTTP headers, query some string parameters, and other commonly needed information. So one of the important super global array is the one of the protocol because to support the HTTP. There are also some methods to support the transfer of the data. So we know when you learn networking, you have learned the HTTP protocol. So this is HTTP protocol is basically is to support us to communicate between the client side. Client side is the UI that you have designed. The user will whatever they see at the browser, whatever users see from the client side of the browser, this is the part that they can when they click any link that we have in our web applications. So this is the part that the UI that the clients will access at the client side. So when they want to submit a form, like let's say they want to register or they want to log in, we will actually they will see that there are some text input that they have to enter some informations, like let's say for login, then they have to enter their username or email and password. When they click login, they will communicate with the servers to get the permissions to log in and go to the websites that requires only the authorized user can access. So HTTP, they work as a request response protocol. So when we started learning the PHP, I already told you the concept of I have repeated the concept of request response. So from user side, user will send a request to the server side to do some processing. So when we do the processing, we will respond according to the request passed by the from the users with the appropriate response after we have run some coding. So this is how the client and server communicate. So these are some of the super global arrays like the globals, cookies, this is for environment data, files, get data and post data. Today we will also look at the files get and post. So later when we learn cookies sessions also, we will also use the cookies and sessions. This is a general. If you use the global array server, basically you will be able, there are different elements that you can use to different keys that you can use to check different server information. So you can retrieve the server information that have reside the web applications. Okay, now we will look at the get and post super global arrays, which is the important part for us to know how to pass the inputs from the user to the backend. So PHP use the super globals get and post to collect form data. So if you remember in the HTML form, right, later I will show the code again. We have method and also action. If you remember when you write when you prepare a HTML form, when you write the coding for HTML form, there are two things that you may notice. One is called method, another one is called action. Method is to decide what is the method that you will use to collect and also send the form data. So get method, later we will see the differences of the get method and post method. So actions actually will define that we will include the name of the scripts, the file, the name of the scripts that will do the processing for us after receiving the user input. So the form data, when we define the form data, we also have to define the method that we want to use, and also and the actions we have to indicate the names of the file that will do the PHP files that will do the processing. It is super global because they are always accessible regardless of scope. You can access them from any functions without having to do anything special. So both get and post values also, we will have that when they pass the value from the user side to the server side, right? They also store the form data. They collect the form data. Also, they collect it and store it in an array. In what we always call key pair values, key value pairs, key and value, key and value, key and value. So later I will show you the key value pairs, right? In the form, which one is the key, and the values is it will be dynamic, depends on the input from the users. So get method, I think for those, if you already have the background with the get and post, when we say we want to use get method, right? Get method will pass the array, because we say that the form data, right, will store as a set of key value pairs. So if let's say you have four inputs in the form, that means that you have four set of elements with four keys, with four pairs, each with the key and the value entered by the user. So if you are using get method, in your you will see your key, then key and value in the URL. So they will pass using the URL parameters. But if you are using post, you won't see anything passing through the URL, because they pass through the data will store in the request body of the HTTP request. So there will be a HTTP request with the data will actually reside in the body part. So if you want, the users won't be able to see the key values pairs in the URL. So these are the main differences. Now we will look at these are the concepts that you need to make sure you are clarified, you are clear, and also you will know when is the time that you can use get and when is the time that you must use post. So if you are using get method, you need to remember the variables, the array variables, the key pair values will be shown in the URL. So later I will show you the code to prove to you that, okay. And the get request can be cached. For HTTP post, it won't show in the URL because everything will store in the body part of the HTTP post method. So any variables will not be visible at the URL. And for GET, we can the request can be cached, but POST never cache. And so if you are using GET request, right, you assume that the information sent from the front end to back end will be visible to everyone, because they will be able to see the key name and also the value displayed in the URL. For POST method, the information sent is invisible because it's embedded within the body of the HTTP request. For GET, it is possible for us to bookmark the page because they can customize the URL based on the values, dynamic values entered by the user. But for POST, you will not be bookmark with specific, like here means that, because here we know that if let's say user enter because the URL, it will be displayed in the URL. So when you bookmark, you can bookmark this particular thing specific for this. Let's say if you are browsing through some catalogs or certain things, maybe they will pass in the catalog ID and also the catalog name. But if you are using POST method, this will not be shown as URL. They will only use a generic URL, so you won't be able to bookmark only for this particular item, for example, with this ID or something like that. For GET, there is a limit of the information sent. The limit is 2,000 characters. For POST, there is no limit. So GET, one of the important thing is you have to see that the data that you are going to show, is it going to be sensitive or non-sensitive? If you are going to send sensitive data, not advised to use the GET method, especially something like password or any sensitive information. For POST method, we are using it to send sensitive and non-sensitive data. Both also can use, can support both sensitive, non-sensitive, and also can support advanced functionality like the multi-part binary input. Multi-part binary input, sometimes like, for example, like image or some of the files, they actually they are considered multi-part binary input. So if you have this in your HTML form, this input, you have to use the POST method. Okay, so this is the example. So if we have a code here. Now, okay, I just come here. Now we have this is a form, an HTML form. So we have set this as PHP login, and this, you remember when you define the form, right? So if you have now, since we are going to pass the input to the backend, so you need to define the action and also the method. Method is what we say, the HTTP method that are going to decide whether we want to use the POST method or GET method. So remember, you must put the right method name. So if we are using GET method, later when we click submit, we will see that the key and the value entered by the user, we will see in the URL. So in the form, right, there are a few things that are different from when you only write plainly HTML, nothing to do with the backend. You don't need to specify clearly like the actions and the method. But unless you are, if another script, another file is going to do the processing for you, then you have to indicate. So action normally is what we indicate, like something like where you are going to, where is going to do this processing. So you will indicate here. If you didn't indicate anything here, they assume the PHP code is in the same file. If this is empty, that means that you are telling people that you will do the processing here. So you will add your PHP code here. Okay. But if let's say there will be another file with a different name set doing the processing, like in this case we have another file called processlogin.php to do the processing for us. So this is where we are going to have to do the processing. Method will be the method HTTP method that we decide how we want to collect the form data and send the data to the backend. And when we define input, right, you remember that we can also define our own ID equals to, let's say we can have ID for this element, right, like name, Also define our own ID for. This is the ID that we use in the HTML, JavaScript, the front end part to for us to recognize the ID. And remember when we do the JavaScript, right? And also when we write CSS code, we always we can define our own ID or class. Remember, we can define our own ID, our own class. But for us to for the backend side, when we submit something to the backend, right? The important thing is the name. This is the default name. You have to use the same name. This will represent the key, the name of the key. Remember when I showed you just now, when we have no matter you are using get or post method, an array will be created based on the key and also value. So the key will be the key that defined by the programmer in the form. So this is important. You must add the name, and also you can define any names that is significant for you. So this is the name which will be the key name, which will be used as a key name. And the input entered by the user will be the value. So this is a key, and whatever input from the user will be the value. So the second one, we also need to add a name. So this name, you must use this the same keyword. You must use this exact keyword to represent the name of the key. So this is the name of the key, pass. So later, when I run this, right, you will see that whatever input that I enter will be uname equals to, let's say I put uname equals to, I enter chum. Later you will see uname equals to chum, and pass. If let's say I enter test 1, 2, 3, you will see pass equals to test 1, 2, 3 when I click submit button. Now I shows you. Okay, so this is a form with name. Ask me to enter my name and password. So when I hold on. Okay, later I shows you do the demonstration first. Later I shows you the process login code. Now let's say I put chum and password is I've entered test 1, 2, 3. Okay, can you see here? After followed by the question mark, you will see the key, which is the key that I defined for this input for the login name. And the values that I just entered, chum. Pass is the second key that I have indicated in my form. And the value that I just entered for the password test 1, 2, 3. So this is after the process, we have a form, right? We have a script, PHP script, process login.php that will receive the input that I just entered, and after we can write some PHP code. So in this PHP code, I have printed my name and also the password, and print the name again. So later I will show you this code. So this one just to prove to show you, when you use the get method, your key value will be passed to using the URL, and you can see is normally the format will be question mark after the script name followed by key equals to value. Then if you have more than one, then they will use the emphasis to continue the next one. So this is actually an array, will pass as an array, but this is the format they will display in the URL. So now I shows you process login. Okay, so for process login method, so now our request method equals to this one. I got two examples. Because later I'm using the same one to show you the example for the post. That's why I write only one script. Okay, so I have the if the request method equals to post, and also this if else we will refer to this code. Okay, so now since I'm using get method, so we will refer to this set of code. So you can see that when we call it a super global array get. This is the exact word that you must use. Remember, because a lot of time, right, when students do the lab exercise, they will keep telling me, Dr. Shah, my code cannot run, this issue, this problem, that problem. But one of the common problems that I see, the method here they use get, but in their code they use post. Okay, they use this super global name. Then definitely you will not be able to do any processing. So if you already define you are going to use get method here, so you have to use the same super global array name. So this is what we mean by super global array name. This is a default one from PHP. You cannot change the name. If it is a get method, you must put the $_ followed by the get. And inside the square bracket indicate the key. So the key must be exactly same like the name here. Must be exactly same uname. If uname, that means that you are referring to this particular value. If plus, then that means you are referring to the second value, because we already know it's going to be an array. So when we want to refer to any values, we pass in the key. That's why you must use the, if you are using get method, must use the right get method, and this must be exactly same like the name here. So a lot of times, right, students say they code not running, this and that. Then when I check, the problem is they put uname here, but in their code, they put name. So definitely you cannot retrieve the value that you want. So in this example, we have defined a variable to store the value passed from the backend. So this is just an example to the PHP code. So this is a PHP code. Do the processing. We define a variable username to store the array values. So this is the first one with the key uname. So this is, we know that it is going to store the username. If it is empty, then we will store it as nobody. So this question mark actually is the if else or something represent the short form for this. So I will this is just to, sometimes, right, if let's say you are not sure whether you have get the things correctly or not, you can actually use the echo to print first, to do the testing. Normally I like to test first, to test whether the input has been successfully received to the backend or not. I will use echo quickly to just to check each of the key and see whether I get the same values like what the user enter or not. So this is echo is to print each of the values. So this will allow us to print the uname entered by the user. Second one will be the pass. So that's why in the output you will see that I print the username. This is what I entered just now, Chiam, and test123 is the password that I enter. And I also echo using the variable name that I have defined. So you see the username again appear again. Chiam. Okay, so if let's say I have another variable to store the password, remember must use the exact name, like what the exact key name, like what you have defined in the form, must be exactly the same. If different, then you will not be able to retrieve. Okay, so now we have a second one. I store in the password. If I also echo it, if I run the code again, you see it repeat 2 times. The second one is actually I echo based on the variable that I define. So this is actually quite simple. Next one. Okay. So this is actually just to show you from the client side, we will use form to collect the input. So after we enter it, like what I showed you just now, question mark followed by the key value. If we have more than one set, that you will use n to here, key and value again. So this will be we will use HTTP request the get method to pass the data to the PHP server, and the process login file will do the processing. So this is another example. If we use the post method, you will not see anything on the URL, but you will still post the same thing to the backend. Okay, now I will demonstrate to you using the. Okay, this is another one. Let me double check that. Okay, this one is the same thing. Just I only focus on the get. Okay, so if you are confused with the first example in my file, this one get right refer to process login to. So process login to, I only include the get method. So if you are confused with this if else statement, then you can refer to the second example. This one only shows we are using get method, but we will process at this file process login to.php. So this one just to in case if you are confused, this is okay. This is for the get method only. Okay, so let's say if you are now we are looking at the for post method. So the actions is still the same file process login, but method equals to post, and we still use the same key uname and same key for the password pass. Now okay, same things. If let's say, okay, this one is later I show you this one. Okay, so now if let's say I submit, you will not see anything on the URL. Okay, this is the output you will see. Now we look at the process login. Okay. So if you see the code that I have for post method, I use the isset to do the checking whether this variable exists or not. Because if the variable is not exist, the script will not be running. So sometimes it is a common problem. I always like to do this checking because sometimes we use a different name. If let's say in the form we use name, but here we put uname, then the code will not be executed. Because this is some kind of validation. And if you see, if we are using post method, then this part of script will be running. So they will echo handling user login now, echo. Here we could redirect or authenticate. Okay. And hide login form or something else. So this is when you are using the post method, and I echo the uname jump and the password test123. So this is just to prove to you that if you are using the post method, you will not see the key values pair appear in the URL. You won't see that. So this will secure the login information like our username and password. Although both methods also can help us to submit data to the backend, to send data to the backend, but we have to decide whether this is sensitive data or not. So this one is just because of the demonstration purpose. That's why I use the login form as an example. But when you are doing for your own assignment, you shouldn't use get method for your login. So okay, you can see that this is also one of the URL will do the encoding and decoding on their own. So you can see sometimes some of the name, right, they have used some special characters. For example, if you are looking at some Europeans names, normally they have some special characters, right? So you can see that even though when you use get, right, in the URL, the URL will encode these special characters automatically at the browser. So you can see this is the first few until the programmer is still until Z lah. We can still see it is normal characters, but A will be the special characters already. But in the URL, they will automatically encode it. But after we do the print, when we want to show it at the browser side in the contents, it will automatically decode it to make it become a special characters again. But at the URL, they will do some encoding for the special characters. So this is something just to show you. Okay, so this is the concept that we have seen. When we receive a request from user using the form, okay, so from the front end side, of course, you can check whether any form data has been submitted or not. So once user click the submit button, that means that they are ready to send. The data will be sent. A request is issued. The request is initiated. And this request, this is a request from this form, login.php. And it will go to the at the back end, we'll do the processing. So this is like the what we always means that when we have the server side, it is like in the kitchen. When you go to the restaurant, you order a food, but you will not see what the kitchen is doing. So the server side scripting will do all the checking, check the database whether this user exists or not. If the user exists, then we will check the password is correct or not. So when they do the checking and found that, and the PHP script, the process login script, found that this user and password don't exist. So this is something that to the respond to the user. If it is a valid one, then we'll be redirect to the page after the login. Okay, so this is the one that I show you, the isSet function. Okay, I think here I will show you another one. And this is another example for post method. Okay, as I have mentioned just now, hold on, let me check. You can also do the processing in the same form. We can embed the PHP code. We can embed the PHP code in the same form. That means that you will, like this one, we have two separate files, right? Like this is the form, this is the login form, this is the script running. So, but we can also include the PHP code in the same file, same as your form. Because sometimes maybe you just want to do some, because this is some of the we are doing some for some quick response. Sometimes you may not need to have a separate script. We can also embed the PHP code. So you can see in this example, we have used the post method and the script, PHP script will help us. But the actions, I put the same file name. If you didn't put, then they also assume this is from the same file. Sometimes they also have there's also another script that you can add here to indicate this is will be the self-processing script. So if you are referring to the same file name or you didn't indicate anything, they will assume this is from the same file. So if I open this example, you will get we will you will see the same output. Okay, so you see, because I put my PHP code here, so you will see it actually added to before the form. When I click submit, the output appear here. So this is just to show you. Let me check. Okay. So I think are you clear with what I have shown now? Because this is actually quite important, the get and post method. If you are not clear or confused with which part, you better tell me now before I continue the lecture. So anything you are not sure what I show you, because this one later in the exercise also you can try to do it. Is there anything that you are confused or not clear? Okay, clear. Okay, because this is important. A lot of times, actually most of the time, students make mistake when they use the wrong name here, so they will not be able to. And here they put the different names, and they will keep telling me that their code is not working. Why not working? Then when you check, next time if you are writing your own code, be careful with the name that you indicate here and the name that you have put here. Must be, if you change something here, must change here as well. Okay. So this is the except functions that I told you we can check whether this variable exists or not. This key paste value exists or not. So in PHP 7, just now I showed you the example, right? We can also use the now collections operator. If it is now, then what is the output that we want? So if you see in the example, in the process login, okay, if it is a now value that we receive, then we will store it as as nobody. So this is this is an example that I already showed. So you can also use this in PHP. This is another example for the if we have checkbox. So for checkbox, right, because normally when we have checkbox, that means we have a few things that we may want to group them together. So there are a few different ways that a few different things that you can do. So normally, if let's say you have a few checkbox, all these can be stored in the same set of array. So we can define name. The key can be defined as an array as well. So this will become a multi-dimensional arrays. So by default, if you didn't put by default it is only one array with the key and pair. But if it is supposed to be you will use the like for example, if it is something like checkbox, but all this actually related to Monday, you want people to pick which day they want to order this food or something like that, then you have to use an array in your name. So this one you have to remember. So that means that the data sent to the backend will be for this part will be a multi-dimensional array. Because we know this get method, this is the super global array. So within the super global array, we have another array, the day array. So this is the values. Okay, but we also indicate the value for this checkbox. If they tick this, that means this will be the one that this is the value. That means that when the user tick, automatically we know this value will be passed to the backend. Because for checkbox, user will only tick or not uncheck or check the box, tick the box or untick the box. So if they tick, this will be the value that default value passed to the backend. Okay, this is the example. We have also have the example here, access form array. So in this example, we have in this form, in this HTML form, we have four we have five days that which appear as a checkbox. Okay, so you will see that it will appear as a checkbox here. So the user can pick the day that they want, that they are free, and when we click submit, it will show that how many items you have checked, you have ticked, and also the value. So if you see in the code, we have embed the PHP code in the same file as well. So when we click submit, first we count the we count this array, how many elements we have stored in this array. So when we click this, when we count this, we know that in this example just now I tick 2, so there will be 2. The values will be 2. The numbers will be 2. So this will help us to count the number of the selected days for this. Okay, so if let's say they are different data, so you can actually use the different name. Like just now the login, right? We have name equals to username, password. But for this case, we store it as an array because we assume that all these are the same things that we want to store in the array. And it can be more than one value. We can have more than one value entered by the user when they select the days of the week. So it's different from when we say username and password, because username will be one unique value set specific for username only, password also one only. But for checkbox, we normally prefer to use an array to store it. And we for each function to look through this array. So you can see the difference. So now when we look through, right, we also have to use the same name. This is the super global get. So when we use get method, remember this will be the get method, and we pass in the key. So the key here will be an array day. Since it is an array, we can use the for each, and this will be the individual elements that we print and we store under this variable d as d. So for each of the elements that we have looked through, we store this under each element's value under this variable and print it. So that's the reason why you can see you submitted how many days. So if I refresh again, I choose another. I choose three days. There will be 3 values. Okay. So we also want to print the value here. So the values will be indicated here. If you don't want comma, then you can use space to indicate it. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Friday. So this is just to show you that the name that doesn't mean you also can use an array for the name of the input, and this will become the multi-dimensional array. So later we will look at another example. Sometimes we will also use query strings as hyperlinks. So this later we will see the example, and you can see that sometimes we can pass in you can see that get will be useful. But if you see anything, right, they show like this, that means that they are using the get method. If you see any things in the encode tag, if they are using the question mark, or if they define a variable and any of the value passed from the user, that means that they are using the get method. So if you see in this example, they are actually applying get method because the key and value is indicated in the URL. So later we will see the example. Okay. Now we see this example. The book example. Number 9 is the book example. So this is the examples that we have. Okay, now I open the extended example.php. Okay, so this is the example to show you, it looks like a catalog. I think a lot of you in the assignment, right, you also have something like this. You have used the, you have different items that you also will display the item information here. So if you see, when I change to by default, you will show me the first item with the image, ISBN number, year, pages. If I link here, you can see the ISBN number change. You will see again the ISBN number change again. When I click the fourth one, the content change and the number and also the and the key and ISBN key also change, and you can see the ISBN key is exactly same. So we are using get method in this example. Now I go to the code to show you. Okay, so in this code, right, so this is the part that we have seen, the HTML part. In the HTML part, we have applied. Okay, we have these are the we can see that we have applied a card to shows, but we have if you look at the container where they are one of the we have C okay, just show here. This code is represented using the unordered list here. This is actually root through this array, books array. So how we get this books array? So later I will show you this is the books data in a text files that we will see. So basically, this unordered list, we will look through an array, the books array, and we want to get the key and also value. So because we need the key, the ISBN key, the unique key, the data is stored with the key, which is the ISBN, and value will be the specific value. It will be the ISBN key value, sorry, is the ISBN value, okay? So later, we also want to print the title as an URL. So you can see in this example, it's actually an anchor tag. This is a list item, but this is unordered list with, but for the list item, we make it dynamic. You will look through the array to show the link with the name. But in our anchor tag, right, this is the one that we have just seen in the lecture notes. We want to store with the query strings in the hyperlinks. So to make it dynamics. So this will be the key, ISBN equals to the key. And this is what we retrieve using the for each function from the books array. And the value will be printed here as a clickable hyperlinks. So this is the part that we have another card to show the image, and the image also dynamic based on what is the ISBN. And again, we have the books array with the key, because this is a multi-dimensional array. With the we have to indicate which ISBN and which title. So this the image actually stored in a particular format. So later I will show you the images. So if you see here, if you'll see in this folder, right, we have a folder called images. So if you notice that actually it is the ISBN number. Each file is stored using their ISBN number. So this is all the images for the books. So you can check for web design. Okay, this is the key, and this is the same name that we use as a file name. So that's why it depends on how you store the data information, and it will also affect So if you see in these informations, we will print the from the array, we retrieve the image based on the ISBN number. So we know which we will retrieve. So you can see we embed a PHP code here. So this is the typical image source. Normally we put a file name, right? But we embed PHP here to have a dynamic input for the image ID, the image name. And this is the file extensions that we can fix it. Just all the files are in .jpeg. So this is the ALT is another. If you want to store the ALT values, then they store it the title for this book. For the card content that you see here, we have ISBN, year, and pages, and the brief description. So you can see in the code, we also, this is the card content with 4 paragraphs, but the content we also embed PHP code. We print the ISBN, we print the year. So this is using the multi-dimensional array, books, ISBN, year. Okay, this is another one, the pages and the description. Okay, now I will show you the data. So remember, we can use include to include a file, an external file to our program, PHP program. So if you look at this file actually works like a database. It works similar like a database, but we just store the data in a file. But if you have database of a file, it is easier because we store everything in database. If you are not using database, this is one of the methods that people will store their informations in a file. So you can see in this file they have this is a PHP code with which define a books array, multi-dimensional array. So in each of the books, in each one, right, they use this ISBN as a key for each book element. So each one, they also have an array. So this is actually a multi-dimensional array. They use ISBN as a unique key for this particular book record. So for each book record, we have another array to store the title of this book, the year, the pages, and description. So this indicate the key, and this indicate the value. Next one, then you follow by comma, key, point to the value, key, value, key, and value. So description and the description's value. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 books here. So by default, we also set default ISBN is the first book, basic of design. That's why in the code, right, by default, it will always use if we didn't select anything, by default, they will use this. Okay, so by default, they will use this. So that when we look through in this file, right, they automatically shows this is the default one that will always be shown. But when we choose other links, it will change accordingly. So this is what happens. So even when by default, if there is nothing, these array keys exist, we will check whether the array keys exist or not. Okay. So by default, if nothing, then we set the ISBN equals to default. If none selected, if none selected. So we will pass in we will store ISBN. We define a new variable to store the ISBN values that we pass from here. So you can see that actually this is one of the example to show you how we can actually use the dynamic way but the information can be stored in the external file. The data information can be from database or from the external file, but we can make it dynamic to embed it into your user content and help us to do the processing according to do it dynamically. Okay, so this is the part of the PHP code that when they receive any change of things, they will also change the ISBN, and all these contents, this content will change when the ISBN change. So this is another example. So for the query strings, sometimes we will do some, if you are expecting a proper query string, it doesn't mean that you will always get one. So if you see in these slides, so your program must be able to handle. So we normally will try to use some of the PHP method to check whether the parameter exists or not, contain a value or not. Like we can use the isset, we can use the check empty or not. Some of the things. So we need to make sure the querying string parameter value, whether is your program should also have some statements to do the error handling, because sometimes the query string may not exist, or maybe sometimes they give you an empty string and the front end side you also didn't indicate whether this is required or not. Sometimes there will be null value passed in to you, so we need to do the error handling to make sure that we will not bring down your system due to some of the incorrect input. So that's why when we do the HTML form design at the front end side, we should try our best to avoid sending some the required data as empty data or incorrect data format. So this is one thing we can do it, but when any data pass to the back end, we still need to do some error handling to do the checking again to make sure that the program can be running correctly. So the query strings sometimes can be problematic. Okay, so before I continue, do you have any questions to ask? You can go back and look at the examples again. Actually, this one, I think some of you can refer to that. I saw a lot of you have like for those who are doing the shopping list, you also have a lot of things related to how you will change dynamically. If this information is from database, then you also have to write the code to make it run dynamically. Okay. Okay, so I will give you 5 minutes break, then later I will continue with the second part. You have 5 minutes break first, so that at least you can stop for a while to think about what I have taught you. Then later I will continue the Okay, class, we will continue the lecture. So next we'll look at the super global server array. So basically, the web server that we use to do the backend processing, server-side processing, they have also have some. We can normally the informations will store under the server super global array. So if let's say you want to retrieve something like the request method, so this is just now we already see in one of the example code. You want to check whether the request method is using post or get method. We can use this super global array. We can also check if you want to retrieve the server protocol informations or the hosting informations, the encoding information, request time, user agent, connection. So these you can go to PHP official website to check what are the information keys that you can retrieve the server information. So these are some of the common keys that you can use to retrieve like the server address, this and that. So this is the example. So if you you are printing this, it will help you to print the information related to the user agent. This one will be the to print the HTTP referral. Okay, so I post in the code. Okay, so this is the example of we apply the super global array, and this is for different informations you have to check which key is if you want certain web server informations, you have to check which key you should use to get the output that you want. So for this is the if you look at the example, I've put some basic informations of for HTTP user agent. So normally this is they will represent the content of the user agent, the header from the current request if there is one. So this is a typical example. So now if we run it, we will be able to see the HTTP user agent. So we store the informations. We also use the get browser method. So we want to get the we want to get from the browser. Okay, so now I run it. Okay, so this is the informations that we retrieve. Related to the HTTP user agent. This code is not working on the example number 10. Is just to show you some of the concept. We can have error handling. So, but it is not a working code. So it is just to show you some concept. Okay, so this is another example. In this, if you look at for example 12, we have a server array. So this is using the HTTP referral. So this will return if you're using this key, you will return the complete URL of the current page. So you can see there are two things here, right? When I click from here, it will help me to retrieve the current page. Okay, you can see now if I run without clicking this, right, it will not help me to retrieve my current page information because this is there's nothing no instructions given. So when I click here, Okay, it will shows me it will shows the referral, so we will be able to back to the previous page. Okay, so if this one, sometimes not all the user agents will support it. So that's why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Not all the key is working. So if this one, that's why you see from here, we store these informations in a variable previous page. So if this exists, then we will echo this. So initially, if I didn't do anything right, I just run the code without clicking here. So actually there is no referral, there is no previous page that informations. So when I click here, because there is already a previous page informations, so we know that the previous page is search.php. If it is search.php, we assume that this is search not equal to 0. So if let's say this is not equal to 0, then we will print this. This is for the form. Okay, so now we will look at the file handling. For in HTML, actually a lot of times we will ask user to upload some files. It can be image file, or sometimes it will be Word file, PDF file. So when we have file uploads, because the file can be in JPEG format, in Word format, in PDF format, and different format. But as we have mentioned that when you use GET, you cannot handle this kind of multi-part input. So we have to use HTTP post method, because HTTP post method will embed everything in the body sections of the HTTP post request. And the good thing is when we upload the file, it will help us to do the encryptions for us, but you have to include this here. If let's say this is a file input, right, we are supposed to upload a file. So beside adding the key for the file, you also need to include this in the form. That means that in this form there is one, if as long as you have something like file, any file that you are asked user to enter, to upload, and also will send to the backend, then we have to add this to your form. If you didn't add, later you will get error. So to indicate that in this form that we are going to submit to backend, there will be input that involve the multi-part input, which is the file. The form data will include the multi-part. So you need to add this. If we have any form that has this, then we have to indicate this encrypt type. So that we the files that we have uploaded, right, they will do the encoding in the body sections and use the HTTP post method to send to the server side. Okay, so this is you can see that when they do although we upload this file, right, as an image file, at the client side, what we see is we browse to our PC, we want to upload this image and store in the server side, sample one, but it is actually when we send to the backend, right, it will appear as a multi-part value, and they will do some encoding for us, and this will put inside the body sections of the HTTP post request. So GET, we cannot use GET to do this. We have to use post to do it. And remember to add the encrypt type. So you can see we already highlighted here, the red color one we have to include to indicate that this form has a multi-part data. So they will do the encoding for us. Then when we reach the end side to do the processing, later they will do the decoding again. So this will be processed in the up file.php code, another file. So you can see, okay, so this is just an example. It depends on the name. We can print the name, the type, the temporary file, or any error. So this is in this multi-part, right? They also have different keys to help you to check the file. What is the name of file name? So this will be the file name, and the type will be .png. So they also have different default keys that you can. So this is what we can do using the super global file array. So for super global file array, you can see it also appears as a multi-dimensional array. The first one, the file name, the file one that you see here is the name that you have indicated here, the key. So this will be the key of your the key of your file Okay, so the type equals to file because we know we are going to upload a file. So this will be the input, and this will be the name file1. So when we look at the files, when we use the super global files array, this will be represent the name of the that we have in the input, and the second one is this some of the keys that when they do the multi-part write, they actually also have store some different information. Like first one, we know the file name will be sample1.png, and any type that you have indicate, any temporary file, okay, any error or any and the size of the file. So there are also some keys that will help you to retrieve. This is the information that the server side they will when you upload the file, when they do the processing, these are in the super global arrays actually will store this information as well. So we can also do the checking for errors, whether the upload file is correct or not. Okay. So it is important that because sometimes if let's say we are not sure whether the upload is successfully, you want to do some checking, you can also use the for each, because it is going to be an array also, as well. Using the super global files, this will also be an array, the file key, and also the file array. For file size, right, of course, you can also do some limit or to do the checking. One of the way is using the HTML form attributes in inputs. You can also do some limit the file size to write some JavaScript code to check the size of your file. If not, if the code sent to the backend, right, we can also do some backend checking, or again writing some PHP validation. So this is one of the example we do checking on the file type. This is another example to show you that they are moving the files to another. Because this when we are moving, when we are uploading, sometimes we may have some temporary locations, and we will store it in another specific destinations folder. So this is an example to move the file from temporary folder to a destination folder. Okay, that shows in the example. Okay, so this is the example for upload form. Okay, so if you open the upload form, you can see this is the we in this form we have indicated that we have a multi-part form data. That means image will be uploaded. There will be a file uploaded. Okay, so this you can see there is a file type here. So as long as if your form has only one is a file in the type equals to file, you must indicate adding this to your form already, so that the HTTP post method will know that they will do the encoding for us when we send the information to the backend. And this will be processed by the upload.php. So if you open here, this is the script that will do the checking for us to check whether the this is an example that I got it from the W3 schools. They have some examples that they help. You can refer to it to see the details. So we will check whether check the file size. We can check whether the files exist or not, the file size, whether the format is acceptable or not. So you can see there are different checking you can do. If you allow users to enter things, make sure the files is in the correct format, or sometimes we don't want to store a big file size. The file size normally will use a lot of our storage. So that's why a lot of time in our application we limit the file size. So the one is the target directory. Okay, so this is one of the example. If you look at the sample code, you can try to run it to see how it works. So if, let's say I open an image file. Okay, I already selected it. Now I click upload. So now you can see it indicates that the file is an image. This is from the code. You can later you can go through the code in details. Due to the time limit, I won't explain in details. And you can see from the super global files, we can also identify the file format, and this is the file that has been uploaded. Okay, if you look at the upload folder, right, you can see I have added a new image. So initially, you already see there are two images here, right? If you download the original source code that I share with you, this is the one that I just added. So you can go through and check. It is a working code. So this one, if you download my sample codes and with all this folder, right, the folder already created for you. We already have a folder called uploads. So if you see the code, actually this will be stored under the upload folder. Okay, so the name will be equals to the file name. So this one you can look at the details. Okay, now the last part is talking about how we can read or write files in PHP, because reading and writing files is quite common in programming. I think when you learn Java, you also learn the different methods that you can read and write files. Because sometimes the files can be stored in CSV format, especially some, for example, if we have stored some data, a lot of times we will you store it in the USB format, and we can upload it to our server to do some further processing. There are two basic techniques to read or write files in PHP. You can do stream access. Stream access means that your code only will read a small portion of the file at a time. Another one is all-in memory access. That means that when you use any method which is using the all-in memory access, the entire file will be read. But it is suitable when we are not reading a large files, then it is useful. But if you have a large files, then you only want to access a small portion, then you can use the stream access. For stream access, you can use the you can use the functions like fopen to open the file. We open the file first, then only we read the file. When we read the file, we use the fget method. Close the file using the fclose method. So remember in PHP, right, when you write any code, before you read any code, you have to use a file open first, then you get the content, then close the file. So this is some steps. For in-memory file access, which will read the entire file, this is the methods, the file method. So when you apply this file method, it will help you to read the entire file with each array element corresponding to one line in the file. So you can use the gets content, file underscore gets content to read the entire file to return a string. You can also use the file put content to write content of a string variable out to a file. So this is the two method, get and put method. Okay, so this is to remind you that we have to keep the version control. So I show you the last example for the file handling. Okay, if you look at the sample code, I already have the sample text. So this is the sample text that we have with the IDs, unique ID for this particular artist, the painting, and the year of their artwork. The year that I think it's the year of born or something like that. The year of born of the artist or something like that. So this is in the sample.txt. So we want to read it using the stream access method. We open the file first, then read the file content and close it. So since we have multiple lines, right? So we use the while loop to go through each line of the code, each line of the text in this sample.txt. So we define, in this example, we define a variable line and use the gets to get the file content. So stream, this is using the stream access method. And we also want to count the lines because there are multiple lines here. So we want to count every time we will print line by line. So every time you will read through one line to the next line, okay? So that's why this is also we have the line equals to fgets. We want to check how many lines we are reading. So when the lines equals to this, then we will keep on. So we will plus to add to go in order to go to another line to print the second line. Okay, so this is what you have seen. Okay, so in the first, okay, this is what we have seen just now from the first example. Now I will open the second one. Second one also we read from the sample.txt. Okay, but we use the delimit. We indicate the delimitator because this file will assume that we open this. Okay. The previous one just now we already see from the sample.txt. Now we will look at the file sample.txt also. Now this is the files that you are using the. This is another way to read from the file using the file method, but you have to pass in the file name. You do the checking. If the file name exists, then we will store under the pendings. If not, we will indicate the error that we cannot find the file. So we from the data is comma. You can see there are four data, right? So each data we have used comma to separate one input one data from another one for the same record. So we indicate that this is comma delimited, and we look through using the for each. So this will going to be an array as well. Each one there are multiple and entry here. So when we use for each for this array, we every time for each element we store, when we look through, we store under the array pending. And we also use the exploit method to check, because this will be the delimiter. So if you use the exploit, you can indicate which will separate the data. So this will be the one that we already indicate. And now we define another variable to store each one. So when we have delimiter, we can straight away separate them to different indexing 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is when you use we use the export method and we store in this another variable. So now we can actually indicate this as ID, second one as artist, the third one is title of their artwork and the year. So this will be the 4 ID indicate for the 4 data. And we do the printing. We do the printing by printing. We print the ID, print the title, artist, and year. So you that's how you see the output from the sample. This is using the file method. The last one is related to write. Okay, so this is to show you how you can use the fwrite method to write it. So we open the file first. And this is the text that I'm going to write it. So this is I use a variable to store the files that I already opened. And when after we open it, you can indicate what is the text that you are going to write into the file using the fwrite function. Pass the content into the file. So using the fwrite, the first one will be the file name. Will be the file, and the second one will be the content, the strings that you are going to add in. Okay, fwrite. Now, if you look at when you use fopen, next we will use the fopen again to open another file, and we write the text. So you can see that in the first example, I use W, and here I use A. There is a difference here. This is the file name, right? I have a new file .txt here. So this is by default, we already have this in the, if I remove it, it is empty now. So now I remove it. And when we write, okay, so this is using the first one will indicate the write method. We're using the W. Another one we're using the append. So if you want to know details later, you can check. There are different indications that you can put to see how you want to write the files. So this is the example using W. This is the example using append. Then we use the file put contents to again to write it into the new file.txt. So we use fwrite and also file put contents. There are two different methods to write the contents. Now I will run the code to show you the output. So this one will give us the how many will show us how many let me double check the files to see what we got. Okay, so this one we already write it to the file. John Doe, Jane Doe, Ali Muhammad, and Alan Tan. This is what we have written. So when we use file put contents, this is another one I use for the test.txt. We use another one to write it. So this is another file. This is for this example, you have to look at the output in the test.txt. Write it here, but you will notice that it won't show me the out, and it will indicate how many characters, the size only, the size of the string only for this file. The size of the files only. It will not. If you see the descriptions, you will allow us to write, but the output that you will get will be an integer. Okay, to show you the size. Okay, so now we can see actually we have this is the example for fopen and also for write and also. So this one, the first one actually indicate that when I open the file and I want to write contents into the file. And the second one is I want to append this data into the existing file. If I didn't put append, right, it will overwrite the content of these two lines if I didn't indicate this as an append. That's why you can see the first one, right? Because this is a new file, it will shows in the it will overwrite the content of the file. The second one, it will just append after the Jane Doe. You won't overwrite it because I already indicate it as A. Okay, so these are just some examples to show you, and in the lab exercise, you can try to do it. And there are two parts of the in the exercise. There is one part that you will continue from the previous. This one is continue from the part one. If you look at the questions, one is from the previous lab related to the calculating the marks and shows the grading one. But you have to change the form to have indicate the field input. You have to create a form to allow users to enter 6 inputs. Then you can modify, you can reuse the code for the functions and the functions that you have written, but just change to get the code. This one, sorry, this is lab 7, lab 7. The second one, right, I want you to, the second one is related to the Java Jam. So for the Java Jam, I want you to create a new sign up form and also a login form. Okay, I just show you in the output here. For task 1, I want you to have a new form called xForce, which allow user to enter six input. So if they enter the marks, then we will do the calculation for them. Okay, we will calculate the average score. This is actually the functions you already have. The only things that you need to do is you have to write the code to retrieve the dynamic input from user. So in this work, remember you must change the form that you in the form, right, we have to indicate the name for each score, and the name will be used as a key to pass the information to pass all this input to the backend. So this is what you should what I want you to do for the task 1. Another one is the Java Jam. I want you to add the sign up page, a simple sign up page and login page. So you can reuse let's say you can reuse the jobs one, just remove just change it to the form that needed for sign up and login. But remember, for sign up and login, okay, so remember to indicate the name in your form. Same goes to the login and also the sign up page. So after that, I want you to use apply the file handling that you have learned to you save the when you sign up for the sign up data, you store it in a text file. Then we read the file to retrieve from the last line to print the information. When the user log in successfully, they will come to the profile page to print out the content. So something like this. When they click sign up, then we'll go to the profile page, which prints the informations for the name and also the email. Password don't need to print because it's supposed to be sensitive data. Then you also can read this from the file, from the data that is stored in the file to greet the user. Some simple thing, you can reuse the UI that you already have, but just add in the like what I did for the sign up and login. So just indicate that. But supposingly, I also have to change it to add a link here for profile. But I didn't add it yet. But you can add it on your own. Okay. So this one is a simple exercise, but I just want you to at least make sure that you know how to. This one, if you already done the gradle.php before, you just need to modify the code from the array. The array input that you get, right, you will have to pass in the data as from the user. So you can modify a program for this. It's quite simple. The second one, you need to add the login page and also sign up page. And for the process, login is also quite simple. You just need to capture this and then store in the text file. And after that, you can read from the text file to print the informations that you have received. So for the read and to read the last line, because we will have multiple lines in your code, right? So I give you a tutorial. So this tutorial will give you the sample codes, how you can read the last line from the files. You can refer to it. So this is a sample code. So the important thing is I want you to make sure you know how to apply the method and how it works like how we did like a database, but you just retrieve from the only difference is you retrieve from the database. Instead of database, you retrieve from the file text. Okay. So this is a Java member. Just now I retrieved from the last line. So this code will give you an example how you can read from the last line. So you can refer to the example here. Then by reading from the last line, because it's different from database. Database, of course, we can refer to ID, this and that, but this one we assume that the data just entered will be the last line in the file, so we retrieve from the last line. Okay, so this is for this week's lab. Okay, so I will for next week, just a quick things to tell you. Next week 10 and week 11 will be e-learning week, so I will post a teaching video. Next week is week 10, so next week lectures and lab I will post the lecture notes and lab questions, and I also will record video for the demonstration part for the lecture and lab. Focus on the code demonstration. The theory part you can refer to the lecture notes. For group assignments, peer evaluation forms, so far I received from all, but because there are some group members that were absent, so I hope the group leader can double check whether your group members still want to work with you or not for part 2. For group assignment, also just a reminder, only the group leader need to submit, because I received 15 submissions, but we only have 13 groups. There are 2 members that also submitted, even though the leader is submitted. But I will just refer to the leaders one, unless you are if there is no issue, I will just refer to the leaders one. For alternative assessment, I already sent an announcement. We will have a live online lab test on 23rd June, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., 2 hours. Okay, this will be a live lab test. So the question is week 15, Wednesday, 11 to 1 p.m. Please jot down the lab test time. Okay, so that's all for the announcement. I will stop the recording now. You try to do the lab. If anything not clear, you better ask me during the lecture time.
Yes, question.
The PHP closing tag. What do you mean by PHP closing tag? We will always have opening and closing. If you see the example, right, even we embed anything, we always need to have the opening and closing. It will always have opening and closing. So even if you have something like you open here, then you close here also, you will still have opening and closing. But normally if it is in the same page, right, it will be able to access. Is it what you mean? Because it's as long as it's in the same page, right? If let's say you embed the PHP code in the same HTML file, right? As long as it's in the same file, then it will be, unless you have, if it's external file, then you have to put include. Okay, so if it is external file, then you will remember to include the file. Else, if it's on the same page, then they will be able to read it. Okay, you can go back and try the exercise, but the exercise is quite simple, because I didn't ask you to do a lot of complex one. Next week when we do the database, I will give you the example. Of course, I will do the I will record demo video, but please try to do it. Then only you watch the video to understand. Unless you really don't know how to do, then you refer to my example and follow the steps to write the code. Okay, that's all for today's class. sorry for the a bit delay because today's one we have to cover quite a bit and I need to explain the form processing clearly. Okay, that's all for today. Take care and stay safe. Anything not clear, you ask me during lab sessions. If let's say you try and it's not working right, ask me because form processing very important. If you are not clear, don't know why you didn't get you show me the error file on the spot or during the lab session. You can try to do it. Anything not clear, better ask me on Friday. Because we are going to have e-learning. During the e-learning sessions also, you can still ask me, send me email or ask me in the Teams. Anything not clear.